Hello everybody, we are finishing our Gyotaku fish prints this week. So your paper should be completely dry before you do this step, of course, but we are going to use colored pencils in order to add some selective color to your prints. So I would not use marker. I think that's going to make kind of a smudgy mess with the ink. And I do think that colored pencils are better than crayon for detail purposes, but if you need to use crayon at home, that's fine. All right, so some really nice parts to use the colored pencils on. So I know it's very hard to completely show the connection between the fins and the body of the fish. So highlighting the fins is a really nice option. Adding just a little bit of color to the body lightly is nice as well. I would not color in the entire thing completely. You still want to be able to focus on the texture, and for that reason, those white spaces are important. That's what helps show the texture, is the difference between the black and the white. So I'm just going to add a little bit into these, and then we'll catch up again in just a moment. All right, so I added some small light amounts of color in, some teal up here, purple down here, and a little bit of orange on the shell. So with the colored pencils, the last step, if you'd like to, I would highly encourage you to do this, is to include a small artist's seal. So remember, they're generally red stamps that show basically the artist's signature or their mark. So we're not stamping them on, we're going to draw them on. So I'm gonna make one up here in the corner. I'm gonna draw it with just regular pencil first, so then I can make sure it looks like how I want it to. All right, and I am just going to do my initials, but feel free to have some fun with how it looks. Okay, that's wacky, I'll take it. All right, so my initials are JMS, so that is what I'm gonna put on here. So I'm gonna grab a red colored pencil, go over it carefully, so that way we can mimic that stamp or that artist's mark that is so traditional in not only Japanese artwork, but in other Asian cultures as well. I'll take it. Alrighty. So after you finish up with your print, you want to make sure that you complete the checklist for this project. Now, for those of you at home, you're going to have to just kind of be open-minded about how you can kind of change these questions to suit you. So before you turn in your Gyotaku print, there we go, and write your response, make sure you have printed 3 or 4 fish onto your paper. I understand that's probably going to be less, that's fine. Show a planned composition of the fish that you printed. So I encouraged everybody to make sure that you're thinking about how the fish fit together before printing. All right, have printed as neatly as you can, showing texture. Again, that texture should be visible. And have added selective color neatly with colored pencils. Great. All right, so again, these are graded responses, so you want to make sure that you are taking these seriously. These are being graded with the IB rubric. So your first question, what did you think about the process of fish printing? Did you enjoy being able to try a new method of making art? So that one is pretty self-explanatory. You can just discuss what you thought of this particular printing process, and it is very different from anything else that we've made, not just this year, but really in any other year. For those of you who are virtual learners who did not do this precise project, you still observed it, and hopefully you can still give your impressions. All right, for the second question, what was the most important thing you learned from this process? So this obviously is challenging, so I would just encourage you to think about what you learned from the process. Maybe it was the actual act of printing. Maybe you learned more about the culture of Japan. So go ahead and write that down. And again, that applies for both virtual and in-person learners. All right, so after you have finished up with the checklist, you will also want to answer your sketchbook reflection questions. So this is our second project and our last project in the printmaking unit. So you want to reflect back on this unit on culture, how we explore different cultures through printmaking. So first question, reflect on our unit on culture. What did you learn about art communication in different cultures? And I think that's there's a lot that you can say there, regardless of whether or not you are an in-person or a virtual learner. And two, which printmaking process, the stamps, the Adinker prints, or the Gyotaku, did you prefer and why? So obviously, in-person learners, that's easy for you to answer because you did both of them. Virtual learners, just kind of decide from having watched the videos, from having seen both of those processes, did you prefer one over the other? Maybe you preferred the finished product of one over the other. So go ahead and write about that there. All right, so go ahead and get everything turned in, and we have officially wrapped up our unit on printmaking around the world.